issues we should be discussing, not Bill 7. In 1964, the country had a promising industrial base supported by copper wealth and modest population pressure. Today, despite more advanced technologies and global access, the average Zambian is more vulnerable, more unemployed, and more underserved than they were 6 decades ago. Despite decades of political transformation, economic reforms, and constitutional changes, the lived reality of millions remain one of hardship, hunger, and hopelessness. Friends, we face a demographic crisis driven by unsustainable population growth that is outpacing our economic, social, and infrastructure capacities. We face a social crisis. Poverty is widespread, and the cost of living continues to soar. Our hospitals are under-resourced, our schools overcrowded and underfunded. Our rural communities remain disconnected from opportunities and essential services. We are facing a deepening governance crisis. These are the issues we should be focusing on. Mismanagement, wastage, corruption, and the outright looting of public resources remain entrenched and rarely punished. Oversight institutions are underfunded, subject to political interference, and themselves tainted by corruption. Citizens' trust in leadership is steadily eroding as public officials continue to act with impunity. Worse still, the law meant to serve justice and protect the public is increasingly being weaponized to silence dissent, shield the powerful, and target political opponents. When legal institutions become tools of repression rather than accountability, the very foundation of democratic governance are placed at risk. Worse still, Zambia is more divided along ethnic, regional, and cultural fault lines more than at any time in its 60-year post-independence history. Political competition has increasingly exploited these divisions, reducing national dialogue to ethnic arithmetic and undermining the founding vision of one Zambia, one nation. Elections have become flashpoint for ethnic tension, and public appointments are widely perceived, rightly or wrongly, as favoring particular regions. This perception has deepened grievances among communities, eroded public trust, and hardened identity-based politics. These divisions are no longer widespread. They are mainstreamed in discourse, mobilized in campaigns, and weaponized in governance. Our democracy cannot thrive when identity becomes a barrier to equal opportunity or political recognition. A constitutional amendment that ignores this threat is not just negligent, it is complicit in deepening these challenges. Friends, Bill 7 has breached Article 90 of the Constitution. By sponsoring and advancing this bill, the President has breached a foundational promise made to Zambian people under Article 90, that executive authority derives from the people and shall be exercised in a manner compatible with the principles of social justice and for the people's well-being and benefit. This clause is not just poetic language, it is constitutional law. It imposes a direct obligation on the presidency to act always in pursuit of equity, human dignity, public interest. It is a fiduciary standard that holds the head of state accountable to the people. Friends, Bill 7 flouts this obligation at every turn. Bill 7 increases the cost of governance through an expanded it is crippling the economy. It removes voters from the equation, allowing party leadership to decide who represents citizens in parliament, thus silencing democratic choice. It undermines decentralization, reversing gains in empowering local governance and communities. It offers no relief to unemployment, no investment in public health or education, and no policies to reduce inequality, the very essence of social justice. Friends, social justice is about inclusion, equity, dignity, none of which are advanced by Bill 7. In fact, the bill privileges political insiders and entrenches inequality by making power more exclusive and less accountable. Friends, to propose such a bill, knowing its content and consequences, is to disregard the constitutional principle that executive power must be exercised for the well-being and benefit of all citizens. This is not a technical error. It is a constitutional betrayal. Let us be clear. A president who violates Article 90 is not merely misgoverning. It is governing unlawfully. And a constitution that is ignored by those who sought to uphold it becomes a tool of manipulation and not an instrument of justice. In light of Bill 7, in light of Article 90, Bill 7 is not just a bad law. It is an unconstitutional act of presidential overreach. It must be withdrawn in defense of people's well-being and the rule of law. Friends, a constitution is not a convenience document for those in power. It is a covenant between the people and the state, the supreme law that governs not only what power is exercised, but how it is exercised and for whom. Amending the Constitution is not a routine legislative task. It is a solemn act that must meet the highest standards of necessity, legitimacy, and public participation. Any proposed amendment must be grounded in demonstrable national need and must reflect the aspiration and concerns of the people, not the calculation of political elites. What Bill 7 reveals is the disturbing weaponization of constitutional reform for political gain. The amendments it proposes are not motivated by pursuit of justice, inclusion, or national development. They are motivated by political consolidation, clothed in legal language, but driven by the desire to entrench power and weaken the safeguards of accountability. Friends, there is no national emergency so widespread, public outcry, and no civic campaign calling for these changes. There is no evidence of meaningful public consultation, no endorsement by civil society, the church, or professional organization. There is no clear constitutional defect that necessitates this overhaul. Instead, there is political engineering masquerading as constitutional reform. This is why Bill 7 is dangerous. It sets a precedent that constitution can be reshaped not to meet public needs, but to serve public political interests. If allowed to pass, it will weaken the Constitution, not in content, but in principle, inviting future leaders to do the same whenever it suits them. Friends, let us not allow Zambia to become a country where constitution bends to politics. Instead, politics must bend to the constitution. As a member of the legal fraternity, we are not neutral when constitutionalism is under threat. The law is not merely our profession. It is our duty, our calling, and our charge to the Republic. In moments of constitutional danger, silence from lawyers is complicity. Passivity from the legal community is betrayal of our oath to uphold justice, democracy, and the rule of law. The stakes are too high for indifference, friends. If we, the lawyers of Zambia, do not speak now, when the constitution is being distorted for partisan gain, then we forfeit our moral authority to speak on any matter of public importance. We must recall that this is not the first time a constitutional bill has sought to subvert public accountability. We stood firm against Bill 10 on constitutional grounds. Today, with Bill 10, the threat is of similar nature, cloaked in reform, driven by political self-interest. If we were right to oppose Bill 10, we are obligated by principle to oppose Bill 7 with the same clarity and conviction. Let us be clear. In the same way that the general election of 2021 became a referendum on Bill 10 and its constitutional implication, the general election of 2026 must serve as a referendum on Bill 7. Let every vote cast not reflect a political choice, but a constitutional judgment. We must publicly and professionally oppose Bill 7, not out of partisanship, but out of fidelity to the Constitution. Defend democracy, the supremacy of the Constitution, as amended in 2016, not as a perfect document, but as a democratic milestone achieved through national compromise. Mobilize institutions, LAS is one of them, the academia, and to educate, litigate, and organize around this threat. Let us remind Parliament that the legal community is watching, and let the courts equally be alert, and the people will remember. Stand in solidarity with civil society and ordinary citizens, affirming that the Constitution belongs to all of us, and it should not be rewritten without us. To every Zambian, your choice matters. Demand transparency. Insist on your right to be heard, educate, organize, speak up. The Constitution belongs to you. It is your vigilance that will protect it. This is our constitutional moment, friends. It is not a time for whispering in corridors. It is time to raise our voices with conviction and courage. Law association, legal scholars, civil society must lead this defense, not with emotion, but with constitutional clarity and unshakable commitment to justice. Let the general election of 2026 be a moment of democratic reckoning, just as the 2021 election signaled a national repudiation of 2020 of Bill number 10. Let the coming election declare with equal force that Zambians reject Bill 7, not only for what it proposes, but for the manner in which it betrays people's trust. The ballot must once again speak for the Constitution. Let us say with clarity and conviction, by introducing and advancing Bill 7, the President has acted in direct contravention of Article 90. That act is not that act is not just legally unsound, it is morally indefensible. A president who governs contrary to the constitutional requirement to act in people's interest and uses power to entrench advantage forfeits the moral and democratic legitimacy to seek another mandate. He has lost the right to ask the people for a second term. Likewise, any member of parliament who votes in favor of this bill cannot claim to represent the people. They will have proven themselves to be defenders of power and not protectors of the people. They will have voted against the will of the electorate, against constitutional clarity, and against Zambia's democratic aspirations. Such leaders do not deserve to return to the National Assembly. Let the people of Zambia take note. Let communities across the country remember that the Constitution was under threat and who stood on which side. Let this moment mark a new standard of democratic accountability. Those who break trust with the Constitution must be denied the power to speak in its name. Let the ballot in the general election of 2026 become a national tribunal, a democratic reckoning, a referendum not just on Bill 7, but on the values we choose to uphold. Let us remember, friends, constitutions do not collapse because they are overthrown. They collapse because those who should defend them choose to stay silent. Today, Zambia's constitution is watching. It is watching our parliament. It is watching our president. It is watching us, the legal fraternity, civil society, and every citizen privileged to live under its protection. It is watching to see whether those sworn to protect it will stand firm or fade into silence. It is watching to see the values, if the values enshrined in its text, democracy, justice, inclusion, and dignity, will be defended in practice, not recited on paper. Friends, the Constitution has no voice of its own. Let's not forget that. The Constitution has no voice of its own. It cannot walk to court. It cannot raise a placard. It cannot convene a press conference. It relies on us, its custodians, to protect it. We must be the voice of the Constitution when it is in peril. We must be its shield when it is under attack. We must be its sword when injustice dares to reshape it for private gain. Friends, Bill 7 violates Article 61. It violates Article 90. It violates the values in Article 8. And it violates the people's trust. The Constitution is watching, and one day the people of Zambia and history itself will ask, where were you when the Constitution was in danger? Let the answer be, we stood up, we spoke out, we said no, not in our name, not to our Constitution, not for our future. Let this address not be remembered for what it opposes, but for what it affirms, that Zambia belongs to its people, that power is trust, and that constitutional democracy is not negotiable. We stand today as its guardians, and we shall not fail our duty. Thank you.